Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to welcome you all to the NBN Conference 2021 with the theme Biodiversity Data from Collection to Use. Following a collaboration with Open University and iSpot team last year, we're delighted to be joining up with them again for our second online conference. I can't exactly recall what I thought this time last year, whether I believe we'd be reverting to face-to-face, but that does seem a long time ago. And if we've learned anything during the pandemic, it's that we need to be adaptable and to learn to be able to do things differently, and also to take advantage of the benefits of doing things in a different way. We had some good feedback last year about the online conference, and whilst I'm really disappointed not to be able to meet people face to face, I'm pleased to know that we are scheduled to be joined by over 300 attendees during the day, which would be a record for one of these conferences, and which I expect is in no small part down to the convenience of holding a conference online. There's also a lot of new names on the list, so welcome one and all to today's presentations. You should have received a reminder yesterday with information and links. For example, we've listened to last year's feedback. We only have 4 rooms now. This conference lecture theatre is where all the presentations will be made, and it will also be where the AGM is held between 12:45 and 1 o'clock. Voting by members has already taken place for the AGM, but everyone is welcome to attend. The NBN Trust and Open University teams are on hand throughout the day to help with queries. Queries should be directed to the NBN Conference Help Desk. That can be found if you click on the link in your joining instructions, and it's also going to be posted in the chat box as we go into breaks during the day. If you have any questions for a speaker, please type them into the chat box or into Google Docs in the NBN Conference Lecture Theatre site. These will be logged during the presentations, and we'll try and field as many as possible. I mean, just to manage expectations, we've got quite a packed schedule. We've got quite a few attendees. We may not be able to tackle all questions, but we'll try and do so. And obviously, if we can pick up and answer questions offline, we'll do that as well. The conference is being recorded, as you're probably also aware, so please bear this in mind if your microphone is unmuted at any point and if your video is turned on, and the recording will be available in a couple of weeks' time. Social media, if you want to join social media, hashtag NBNConf21, that's hashtag NBNConf21. Obviously, we hope all the technology works during the course of the day, and we'll try and resolve any problems as best we can, but please bear with us if we do have any hitches. The conference theme, biodiversity data from collection to use. At the risk of preaching to the converted, I just wanted to reflect briefly on why the theme of this conference and the work of the National Biodiversity Network is quite so important, and also why I can't wait to hear from the speakers today. I don't know if any of you have ever looked at a document called the Global Risk Report. It's a document prepared annually by academics and risk experts for the World Economic Forum. That's the annual gathering in Davos of leaders from governments, businesses, international organisations. The Global Risk Report sets out the perception of members of the World Economic Forum of the key risks the world is facing, which are the most likely and which would have the greatest impact if they came to pass. Looking at the 2021 report, a couple of points struck me. First, a slight truism. Life is difficult to predict, and when and how potentially catastrophic issues play out is absolutely no exception. As an example, infectious diseases, think of coronavirus, whilst understandably top for 2021, did not make it into the top 5 over the last few years. A second point for 2021, and this is why what we're hearing about today I think is so important. In terms of likelihood of an event happening, biodiversity loss, that is the irreversible consequences for the environment, humankind and economic activity, sits just behind infectious diseases, which is itself just behind other environmental risks, climate change, extreme weather and human environmental damage. And in terms of impact, biodiversity loss sits just behind infectious diseases, climate action failure, and weapons of mass destruction. So when I consider the impact of just the pandemic from amongst those risks, the global scale, the unforeseen consequences, the economic, behavioural, political and societal effects, it reinforces for me the enormity of the issue of biodiversity loss and the challenge ahead. So biodiversity loss, impact potentially as colossal as the pandemic or climate action, likelihood perceived to be pretty much as likely to occur as the pandemic we are currently living through. So what? Well, I also reflect that something we've all witnessed during the pandemic in abundance is that if we're going to deal with a crisis, let alone head it off before it happens, data is key. Quality information, the cornerstone of being able to make properly informed decisions and to act early and to act smartly. Global risks, the pandemic. Sorry to start off with that. You may think that all sounds a bit gloomy. Actually, far from it, and I'll tell you why. Because I think when I look at today's agenda, we will be seeing many brilliant examples of people doing the kind of work which gives us the greatest chance of ensuring that we do have the information, the data available, as well as the talent and desire to tackle this existential threat of the biodiversity crisis and reap the benefits and opportunities of understanding the natural world in all its glories. I'm not saying that's without challenges, funding, having the right people to use that data, etc., etc. But today we'll be hearing from important voices from the network, from the CEO of the Wildlife Trust to leading academics. We'll hear about available tools, be it natural capital and ecosystem assessment, eDNA, or the different systems available for biodiversity recording. Also about the partnerships, which are absolutely critical, the partnerships within the National Biodiversity Network that will be critical to ensuring strong, unified voices are brought to bear and action is taken. We'll be hearing from work about the Scottish Better Biodiversity Data Project and mobilising citizen science. And we at the NBN Trust are very aware about the important part we need to play in this. You'll be hearing from our new CEO, Lisa Chilton, who is already bringing her drive and energy to the Trust's work. I know she's reached out to many of you in the network who will be attending this conference. We've also been pleased to be making a contribution to the Better Biodiversity Data Project, which I mentioned just a moment ago and we'll be hearing from later, and the publication in May of the Geospatial Commission report commissioned by the Cabinet Office, mapping the species data pathway, again, which we might be touched on later. And our focus as a trust is on our data portal as well, the NBN Atlas. Our ambition is to ensure this is a world-class platform, globally connected. We'll be hearing more about work that has taken place on the Atlas over the last year and how the information on the Atlas feeds into a global platform, GBIF, the Global Biodiversity Information Facility. We'll be hearing about that this afternoon. And the network is part of a wide web with loads of people doing loads of wonderful things, the data gatherers, the data providers, the data users, and all the people in between, be they amateur or professional, an army of volunteers, young or old, new to the network's work or long-standing contributors. We look forward to being able to celebrate the work of some of our amazing recording colleagues when we announce the winners and runners-up at the NBN Awards for Wildlife Recording 2021, which will take place after the conference from 4 o'clock to 4:45, and that ceremony will take place here in the conference lecture theatre. Do hope you'll be able to join us for that wonderful event. So I am very excited about the day ahead. I hope you are all too. And before handing over to our patron, Sir John Lawton, to chair this morning's session, I'd like to welcome, to say hello from the Open University to Advaith Siddharthan, Professor of Computer Science and Society in the Open University STEM Faculty and Knowledge Media Institute. So, Advaith, over to you.
Hello, everyone. It might take a few seconds for the presentation to load, but welcome to this year's NBN conference on behalf of the Open University and the iSpot team. I seem to have lost the presentation at this point. Let's see if I can get it back.
I can see it, Advaith.
I can see it.
Oh, okay, fantastic. So I'm the only one that can't. Okay. So I hope I can move the presentation along because I certainly can't see it.
If you're having problems, Advaith, I can move them for you. So just say.
Just a second. I think this might be the view that I have. So if you can move them along, Janice, please do. Well, anyway, yeah, no, I can see them now. Great. So this is the campus as it looks these days, and it would have been great to have you all here taking this view over a coffee at this time in the morning. But as Neil said, it's also great to see so many of you here today, around 250 as we speak, and over 300 registered, and so many more than would have been able to travel here in person. So for those who don't know me, I'm Advait Siddharthan, a professor for computer science and society and iSports academic lead. I think it's a great time to be working at the Open University today. Our management have committed recently to disinvestment from fossil fuels by 2023 and to decarbonizing our energy supplies by 2030. Our OU strategy now talks about environmental justice as well as social justice, about knowledge creation and sharing, and about developing our students and staff to become agents of change. So, from a personal view, our research around biodiversity citizen science, now more than ever, feels like part of a wider renewal of energy and purpose within the Open University. And this was brought home to us earlier this month when the OU took biodiversity citizen science to the COP26 Green Zone in Glasgow through an event organized with Glasgow Museums, where Janice Ansa and myself and Mark Brandon presented our research alongside Indigenous artworks depicting environmental change. The iSpot team is expanding its research. We are now working more with schools, getting younger citizens involved, and not just through recording in a traditional sense. We are researching new technologies, including AI and haptics, to enable and empower citizens. We're looking at art-based methods for connecting science to its personal and societal relevance and creating more emotional attachments to nature. We already work with many of you through several ongoing multi-site projects. Through these projects, we're working with NBN to update iSpot species dictionaries, so it'll soon get easier to share and use our data. We are pondering how to integrate modern technologies, camera traps, image recognition, etc., into iSpot, while retaining its essence as a social site for humans to share and discuss nature. And we are designing resources for kids in schools. So I'm really looking forward to the program today with its focus on data collection and use. And I'll stop now and leave the talking to the experts. Thank you and welcome again.
Thank you very much, both. Nice to meet you.